It was a bitterly cold Tuesday night, the kind where the air stings your skin and the streets feel lifeless. John sat on the sidewalk, huddled against a brick wall, wrapped in a tattered blanket that did little to keep the cold out. His stomach growled, a painful reminder that I hadn't eaten all day. In his hand, he held his entire fortune, a single dollar bill. It wasn't much. It couldn't buy him a warm bed or a real meal. But it was all he had left. He stared at it, debating whether to spend it now or save it for the morning. Maybe he could get a cheap cup of coffee, at least something to warm him up. But before he could decide, a woman passed by. She looked distraught, her hands trembling as she checked her empty purse, her breath shaky, her eyes filled with panic. John hesitated before calling out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She turned, startled. "I lost my wallet," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even have $1 to get home." John looked down at the crumpled bill in his hand. He thought about how hard it was to have nothing. He thought about the hopelessness, the hunger, the nights spent freezing on this very street. Then, without a second thought, he stretched out his hand. "Take it." The woman's eyes widened. "I can't take your last dollar. You need it more than me." But John just smiled. "You'll find a way to pay it forward." She hesitated, then took the dollar, her hands shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Thank you. Thank you so much," John nodded, watching as she hurried toward the bus stop. Then, he let out a long breath. Now, he really had nothing. That night, John curled up under his thin blanket and tried to sleep, but the cold was merciless, creeping into his bones, his stomach twisted with hunger. Did I make a mistake, he wondered, but then he pushed the thought away. He didn't regret it, because deep down he knew. Sometimes kindness matters more than survival. He finally drifted into a restless sleep, unaware of what was going to happen. The next morning, the first thing John heard was a voice calling his name. He blinked awake and looked up. Standing in front of him was the woman from the night before. But this time, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a man in an expensive suit. John sat up slowly, confused. "What's going on?" The woman knelt beside him, her eyes filled with emotion. "I never got to tell you my name. I'm Sarah. Last night, you didn't just give me $1. You gave me hope. Because of you, I got home safely. And when I told my father about you, he wanted to meet you himself." John turned to the man beside her. "I'm the owner of a company downtown," the man said. "Sarah is my daughter. When she told me what you did, I knew I had to help." John's heart pounded. "Help?" The man smiled. "I want to offer you a job, a fresh start, a second chance." John's breath caught in his throat. A job? After years of struggling, years of feeling invisible, was this real? Tears filled his eyes as he tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The man placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. All because of a single dollar. Funny how life works, isn't it? John wiped his eyes and finally found his voice. "I thought I lost everything. But maybe I was just making room for something better." That day, he walked into his new life. Not as a homeless man, but as a man who had given his last dollar, only to receive something priceless in return.